Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
None.
Seeing none, any public comments?
There is one person who might be here for a public comment. I don't know if I mean it.
Leslie?
To the people in the waiting room, I see some folks in the waiting room. Is anybody there, or I'm sorry, not the waiting room, the Zoom room. Is anybody there wanting to make public comment? Like, no.
All items. So with that, we will move to the 2025 HUD entitlement grant action plan. Review anticipated fund available and public hearing format. So can I just turn that over to staff?
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here in person and online. This is our annual first public hearing for the HUD entitlement annual action plan. There's a number of prescribed steps that we take every year. We've received, questions from the community about what to expect from HUD. And at this time, we haven't received any new information or different information than what we normally do. So we're proceeding as we normally do. And then if there's anything that we need to update you about, we will do that. So this year, we are anticipating from all total CDBG sources about $796,000 to be working with, and about $244,000 of home to be working with. So these are anticipated amounts. They're estimates that we create by looking at our past 20 years of HUD entitlement funding. So we won't have actual numbers or amounts until the federal budget is not just passed, but then HUD does its formula and lets each community know, each entitlement community, how much they will have. So just like last year, we're working with anticipated amounts so far. And as I'm sure you all know, our requests for funding far outstrip the amount that we anticipate having. So we have received over $1.8 million worth of requests for the less than, or just tiny bit over $1 million grant this year. So this year, we're doing something a little different with the public hearing, which I think all of you know. There's still 12 minutes allocated to each organization speaker, and they will have 8 minutes to present their prepared remarks, which can include the responses to committee questions that have already been forwarded to them. After that 8 minutes, Charles will ring a buzzer, and then there'll be a 4-minute question and answer period where IURA board members can ask additional questions, and then there'll be a final buzzer. So I know the buzzer tends to be, I don't know, can be jarring, so be prepared for 2 of them. Also, when you come up to the microphone, please make sure it's on. We only have 1 microphone, that's this year. Okay. So our first presentation is from INHS. We have Victoria and Lynn here to talk about their 209 West State Street project.
Just before we grab the timer for you all, the board knows this, but I just want to let everyone know. It turns out I'm a human being as well, not just an elected official. And I apologize. I'm at some point gonna have to run out of the room to go let a mattress delivery company into my home so that I have somewhere to sleep. So apologies for my rudeness. If your presentation is the one that I walk out on, I will be watching it on YouTube, but
No worries.
can't help myself.
And also we're looking for the meeting timer on the screen. We don't see it yet. It has been up there before, so we know it can be there. Charles, who's managing things remotely, can let me know.
Do you see it in the very top right-hand corner?
No.
And actually, while we hold the timer up, I think we also just any disclosure of the potential conflicts of interest, probably reminded me.
Yes, one of our presenters today is Southside Community Center. The executive director of the center is my niece. Otherwise, but I have no other connection with the center.
Thank you. Any other agency members have disclosures? Thank you.
I think we need to reset the timer here, though.
Oh, looks like there's a teeny timer. I don't know that the folks at the table will be able to
Can you read that?
see that.
In the far right corner.
Looks like it's disappeared again, actually.
Oh, you're right.
I thought momentarily.
Well, when I start it, you will see it,
Okay.
Okay.
in the top right-hand corner.
The question for you too, would it be helpful if I set my iPhone right and it's set it down?
Anyway, I don't know,
Okay.
take up the 8 minutes, hopefully.
Everybody is just very cool and collected and very ready to go, so probably not to start. Okay, so we can start it.
Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. My name is Victoria. I'm a developer with Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services, and I'm here to talk about our proposal to redevelop 205 and 209 West State Street as affordable housing and daycare. Just a brief overview of our organization in case anybody's unfamiliar with us. We're a local nonprofit. We're dedicated to expanding housing opportunities for low and moderate income residents within our 7-county service area. We currently manage over 750 rental apartments. And in addition to developing rental housing, we also develop affordable for sale homes. We provide first-time home buyer education and their down payment assistance. We operate a major and minor home repair program. And most recently, we acquired manufactured housing community out in Trumanford that we are now developing. Each year, INHS helps nearly 3,000 neighbors access quality, affordable housing, and next year is going to be our 50th year supporting Ithaca's neighborhoods. And it's now just kind of more about our specific proposal that we're here today to talk about. It is the proposed redevelopment of the existing family medical building and the municipal parking lot at the intersection of West State and South Geneva Streets. And we are proposing to develop the site as mixed income senior rental housing with a daycare that would be located. The building is going to contain 56 units, all of which would be 1-bedroom apartments. Just to give you a sense of the building, it's going to be about 5 stories tall. It would be all electric and it would be designed to meet passive house standards, which to show that it's a very energy efficient building. On the first floor is where the daycare would be located, and it right now is taking up about half of the first floor. The space would be owned by INHS, and then it would be leased to a daycare operator. We were initially in discussions with TCA, but due to volatility with federal funding, we've also reached out to Downtown Ithaca Children's Center, and we're currently trying to design a space that could meet either organization's needs. And the rent for the space would be negotiated with whoever the daycare operator ends up being, but it would be at a below market rate rent for commercial space in the area. With the site being located just off the commons, it is very walkable and it has convenient access to public transportation. So if you have a chance to look at the site plan, you'll see it does include 12 parking spaces. Those are all tucked under the building, and there is no parking required by zoning, but we did try to include as many as we could. The site is just very tight. And we do have a similar property that's located about a block off the commons next to DeWitt Mall, where we have about 14 parking spaces, and that is working out fine. I guess just to kind of go into more about who the project is going to serve now that we've kind of talked about, I guess, the design for it. As we all know, there's a high need for affordable housing, and it is identified as one of the top priorities within Ithaca's consolidated plan. And so to meet the need for housing, we're proposing that it be for seniors with incomes between 50 and 100% of the area median income. The majority of the units at 209 West State would be for households earning up to 60% AMI. And so for a 1-person household, that would be somebody who's making up to $46,000. And for a 2-person household, that would be about $53,000. INHS will also accept housing choice vouchers. And so that would allow anybody who's making even less than 50% of AMI to rent an apartment there at an affordable rate as well. And for the purpose of this project, we would be defining senior households as anybody who is 62 and older. And while we don't have any specific age restricted properties right now in Ithaca, we do have some similar properties that have a high number of 1-bedrooms relative to the other bedroom sizes. And we're finding that about half of those 1-bedrooms are occupied by people who are seniors. And so right now we also do have a wait list of 292 households for our 1-bedroom units. And based on the age information that we have for people on the wait list, about half of those people are over the age of 50. And then the total project budget is about $25 million, and we're requesting that the IURA funds would be used for acquisition. The IURA funds are the only funds in the, only federal funds in the budget, and most of our project funding will come from New York State Homes and Community Renewal. The largest project source is the low-income housing tax credit, and we'd be applying for these funds later this year. In fall of 2025 is when we anticipate their next application to come out. It is a competitive funding source. So if we were successful in the first round of applications, we would look to start construction in August of 2026 and complete construction in 2027. All of the IURA funds would be expended at the construction closing when we acquire the site. And then we'd anticipate that the lease up for the property would take around 6 months. So it would be fully occupied by April of 2028. So a while off from now, but that's essentially the plan. And I hope this was a helpful overview, and then I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks very much. Tremendous. Shane.
Thank you. And thank you for giving a little more detail to the childcare part. I was wondering if I recall from hearing a previous presentation about the state funding apparatus. So I was just wondering, isn't that money also essentially sort of contingent on federal flows to the state? I'm only asking just because of the precariousness of those flows, but
It's not discretionary funding, so unless they change the low-income housing tax credit program, which I haven't heard anyone suggesting at this point, because that's a public-private partnership type program, which generally Republicans have tended to support. And there are lots of benefits that flow to the investors in these projects. So we have not heard any concerns about those funds. It's really contracted discretionary funding that's at risk.
Yeah, thank you both for your presentation. I did have a question about your rent policies. Are these units going to be rent stabilized in any way, or what is your policy around rent increases over time?
There's a maximum rent increase that's allowed by Homes and Community Renewal, which is our major funder. So typically it's 2% per year. They did have this big bump recently where they allowed people to go up 9%. We did not do that. We went up 4%. I think it was to adjust for inflation, because 2% over the years obviously doesn't match that. But yeah, we are constrained by HCR's requirements on maximum rent for those units.
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
I believe you answered these two questions in your presentation. The first, what age is considered senior?
For this project, it would be 62 and older.
Okay, and in the application, you mentioned that there was an extensive wait list for senior one-bedroom apartments. Was that the wait list with INHS or the overall wait list in this area?
Sure, it was the wait list just for our one bedrooms. We don't break it out by the age group in our wait list. Yeah, so, and it was just for our Ithaca portfolio, which we have 292 households on the wait list for one bedrooms right now.
But you mentioned about half of those are people who are over 50. So
Yeah.
that's where the information about there's seniors out there needing housing.
Thank you.
Briefly recognize myself. I know you're looking at two different partners of the daycare element, but do you have a sense of what the capacity is for children at that site?
The number of children, right now it's laid out the same size as the daycare at 210 Hancock. There's 3 classrooms there, and I think there's maybe 10 children per classroom, something along those lines. I'm not positive of that, but I know it's 3 classrooms.
And there's not much variation between which partner you might go with.
No, yeah, no, I don't think that there is. Yeah, they're both looking at the same age range.
Further questions? You want to share with us and give a chance to cover? Thank you for your time.
thank you. Okay, so I think we're seeing the timer on the screen now, so that makes it a little easier. Also, just wanted to reiterate, the presenters know this, but if we end early, we're gonna try to go right into the next presentation, but if I'm not mistaken, hard for me to see, Our Habitat for Humanity presenter is not here yet online. She anticipated coming via Zoom. So in that case, what we normally do is go to the next presenter after that, and I see that the Learning Web folks are here. And ready to go. We really appreciate everybody's like nimbleness and willing to go with the flow. Okay. So. Charles will start that 8-minute timer whenever you folks start talking.
Okay, we're gonna start talking. Hi there, I'm Michelle Nolan. I'm the Deputy Director of the Learning Web.
Anthony Colangeli, I'm the Director of Youth Outreach at the Learning Web.
So the Learning Web, in case you don't know, is a youth serving organization here in Tompkins County. We provide barrier and cost-free services to Tompkins County youth ages 11 to 28. There's a wide definition of youth depending on the services that we provide. So I just want to put that out there. The Learning Web is applying for $95,340 to pay for rent and utilities for up to 5 units for homeless youth ages 21 to 24 for 12 months in scattered site apartments in the city of Ithaca. Using a tenant-based rental assistance model where the youth sign the lease, but the Learning Web pays the rent and utilities for up to 12 months to stabilize housing while providing case management services, life skills instruction and resource navigation to increase their ability to live self-sufficiently after that. We're asking for more money this year because the fair market rate's just going up and up and up. And so the 2025 fair market rent for 1 bedroom is now $1,489, and utility costs are also on the rise. Currently, we have an IURA contract for the Housing Scholarship Program for up to 5 apartments. We got our contract at the end of January, promptly moved in 1 youth, and we have 2 more youth moving in next week. One is a youth with a child, so we'll be up to 4 beds by, next week. Last year's funding application, we specifically designated these 5 households for ages 21 to 24, and we're asking for that again because there is a gap in transitional living units for youth, homeless youth. We have a transitional living program through the federal government, but it is for 16 to 21-year-olds. And so we are looking at trying to expand transitional living opportunities here in the city. Currently on coordinated entry, there are a total of 59 youth, homeless youth waiting for housing, and 57% of those are ages 21 to 24. One of the questions that we got from you all is for us to outline our 4 concurrent housing programs that we are operating and the ages. So I'm going to let Anthony, who's in charge of housing, talk about our programs.
Yeah, hello. So we have 4 housing programs currently at Learning Web at the Youth Outreach Program. We have a transitional living program that is funded by the Family Youth Services Bureau. That program is for youth ages 16 to 21 for up to 18 months. We also have a YHD transitional program, which is funded by HUD for youth ages 18 to 24 for about 10 youth. That program technically ends on September 30th of this year. We also have a permanent supportive housing program that is also funded by HUD for 16 apartments. We have 20 beds, 13 single units and 3 family units for youth ages 18 to 24 at entry. We also have 1 more housing program that is currently funded by HUD, the Housing Scholarship Program, which is where we receive money from IURA, and that is for ages youth 21 to 24.
And at the end of September, if all goes well with the federal government, we'll be starting the county's first youth rapid rehousing program, also funded by the Youth Homelessness Demonstration Project, which is a HUD program. And that will help us provide 6 literally or imminently homeless youth households aged 18 to 24 at intake, with up to 36 months of rental assistance, in addition to support services necessary to stabilize housing. So in this past year, the Learning Web housed 33 youth, and we helped 44 others obtain housing. We've transitioned 100% of our transitional living program youth to safe, stable housing and help them maintain that housing. We So far in 2025, the Learning Web has 31 active leases, with 17 different landlords. This includes 7, soon to be 8 family units for young parents that have a child. And some of our landlords own 1 property, and we have just now expanded to work with like Candlewick Apartments and also INHS. So we're expanding out to work with, basically, apartment complexes, and that's working for us actually. So this past year, just want to say that we have our independent living survey that's out, and we know that housing is still a need, and youth homelessness is, being solved by programs like the Housing Scholarship Program and the other housing programs that we operate. Question that was asked of us is, what's going to happen if the federal government keeps cutting HUD? I think that you've heard that all of our programs are funded by the federal government. So what's going to happen? Yeah, your guess is as good as ours. I guess we would have to wind down all those programs and default on all of those leases, to be honest. Like, I don't know, like that's basically it, and so luckily we have a great executive director that's made excellent financial plans for us in the short term, but we're dependent on those federal funds to run these programs. And the other question that we got is if the youth isn't ready at 12 months, can the youth stay in the apartment? And it's our job to make sure that youth transfer to safe, stable housing after they are done with our program. So in some cases, we transfer them to another one of our programs, but youth are able to access aftercare for up to 3 years with us. So we provide case management once they're housed. So we're not putting people out on the street after 12 months. It's not.
Thank you for that. I'm just wondering, because as you heard from Anissa, the requests are, even assuming we get the money that we think we're going to get, the requests are much higher than that. So could you tell us a little bit about how you would scale if we couldn't grant your full request?
Well, I would say we're always looking for leases below fair market rate. So we would scale down the number of apartments based on what we could afford, so that's kind of the way that it is. Luckily, we have landlords that in some cases are renting to us far below, fair market rent, which is great. But that's becoming less and less popular actually. We'd scale back, if we had to, but every apartment that we get is one less homeless youth or one less homeless youth with a child. So, every little bit helps. To be honest, I say this is a really small program, right? 5 apartments. So 3, 4, it all helps.
Thank you.
Are these all, so all the clients have their own apartment, they don't have roommates?
Correct.
Has that model ever been tried to double up for efficiency?
It has been tried by other organizations, but we prefer our youth to have their own space. When you often have shared rooms or even shared residential projects, the problems are multiplied when you have a room. All of these youth generally come to our program with some form of trauma, and we like them to be able to work on their own trauma while not having to deal with a roommate or another person in your apartment.
I just have a question for public edification. Can you just help everyone understand what imminently homeless definition is?
So with our Human Services Coalition, within up to 14 days, if they're facing eviction or have to be out of their home.
Thank you. Now, please.
Might be helpful to understand that the funding your request doesn't provide for any supportive services, although they're a key component of your program. Could you talk about how this program would differ from your other programs in terms of the supportive services you can provide?
Currently, although, it's hard to say if we were not to get money for supportive services. I don't think there potentially wouldn't be a reduction in services to these youth. I mean, I think from the beginning, we started working on their exit plan, just so we know. So it would be a tough decision to have to try to figure that out. I mean, the supportive services are key. We try to, all of our youth that are in the living program now are either in pursuing their education or working a job. So, you know, we try to set them up with a job, health insurance, whatever we can, food, whatever we may be able to provide to help them support them towards their independence.
I guess to clarify, you do provide supportive services
Yes,
for
we
this
do.
program, even though the HUD grant doesn't
Doesn't
provide.
provide, but we do, yes, we provide support services for all of our youth. We try to make sure they'll have a safe transition plan upon exit, so yes.
We've secured over $76,000 in funding for this project to cover things like apartment startup, case management, food. Our staff have to have an office, you know, all occupancy related services. And we also have in-house mental health support that's completely free, that is rolled into this also.
And you have a separate request under services.
Correct.
All right, any more questions from committee members or board members? There we go. Thank you very much.
Hey, Habitat for Humanity is here, and there's a problem with the Zoom link, so, Shannon was in the Zoom world trying to get in at her slot, so, here she is, and, Shannon, just as a reminder, there's, 2 timers this time. 8 minutes for prepared remarks, and then 4 minutes for Q&A. If you finish prepared remarks early, that timer will continue as the board members ask questions.
Okay.
So whenever you're ready, the timer will start.
Gotcha. Thank you. Thanks for your help this morning. So my name's Shannon McCarrick. I'm the executive director for Habitat for Humanity of Tompkins and Cortland counties. I'm going to talk a little bit about our project, which is the construction of a new 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom affordable home at 610 West Court Street. So this is one of 7 that we're working on this year, which is a lot of ambitious growth for us. 2 of those projects, 312 Plain Street and 610 West Court, are unique for us because they're our first forays into modular construction. So Habitat affiliates across the nation are kind of trying to take a hard look at how we build and how we can respond faster to the housing shortage. And modular construction is one way for us to expedite things. So this is not replacing Habitat's volunteer-driven construction model. We're still doing those stick-built, volunteer-built homes. In addition, we're just kind of trying to plug in some modular projects to help us pick up the pace of construction and not do every house that we build entirely volunteer-built from scratch. So one thing that doesn't change, even if our construction process might look a little different, is Habitat's affordability and house pricing model. So what Habitat does is we cap the sales price of our homes at 30% of the buyer's monthly household income. And that's over a 30-year mortgage. So regardless of what it's costing us to build that house, we price it based on the income level of our home buyers. So say our buyer's qualifying for a $120,000 mortgage over 30 years, and it costs us $200,000, I wish, to build the house. They're going to take out that $120,000 mortgage, and we are going to fill that gap, that $80,000 gap, right? So this has kind of always been Habitat's pricing model, and it's a terrible model if you ask a business person, because we lose money every time we build a house. But it's why we're so aware and always working to utilize volunteers and donations to keep our construction costs down. And it's kind of the way that our program is unique, because we're able to help very low and low income home buyers access a home ownership opportunity that other banks and builders and programs just kind of can't do. It's just a deeper level of affordability. So in addition to that affordable mortgage, this property will be a part of Habitat's Community Housing Trust. Habitat retains ownership of the land. Our home buyers purchase the improvements upon it to the house itself, and they have a 99-year renewable lease on the land. So this helps us lower the purchase price of the house and allows our buyers to access a right-sized assessment, which in turn reduces their tax burden from what it would be full market rate to a more affordable and amount based on the sales price of their home. In return, these homes have resale restrictions on them. So the property must be resold or sold to another qualified buyer with a household income at or below 80% AMI in the future. So we're not just building this one-time affordable home for this one family. It's a permanently affordable house. It's a new unit of affordable housing for the city of Ithaca. 610 West Court is a vacant lot right now. And it will remain affordable for generations to come as the house is resold. So in addition to affordability, the last time we applied for HUD entitlement funds, we had a pretty unique loan product through Sunny Mae where our buyers could access a 2% interest rate on their mortgages. And sadly, that product is no longer available. So right now, the best we can do is kind of to just tell our buyers to shop around and go to the bank and see what rate they can get. So they're looking at more like 6.25%, 6.5% on their mortgage where they used to be looking at 2%. And so we are actively across the street trying to find a replacement loan product that can help bring those interest rates down. But for right now, we're taking a bigger hit than we have been in the past because our buyers are qualifying for smaller mortgages because of that higher interest rate. So our subsidy is growing, unfortunately. So from a financial standpoint, it's just kind of this like perfect storm for us, right? So land acquisition costs are very high. Construction costs are high. We don't know what tariffs are going to do to things like our lumber costs, but we're anticipating they're going to go up more. When we build in the city, we do have to use licensed plumbers and electricians. And when we work in other municipalities, we can have volunteers do that work for us. So that kind of bumps up our subcontractor costs. And then now we have our buyers qualifying for smaller mortgages. So it's just sort of this perfect storm of high costs for us at the moment. I think it is for a lot of builders. So our $95,000 ask is a bigger ask for just one unit than what we've requested in the past, but it's what we feel like we need just given the number of projects that we have going and the trends we're seeing and what's going on with our mortgages for our home buyers. So one mechanism that I think will begin to help us is that every time we close a Habitat home, we cycle some of those proceeds back into building another Habitat home, right? So as we can close some of these 7 homes that we'll be working on in one way or another this year, we will start to see more of those closing proceeds roll back into our cash flow and help us fund the next house that we want to build. So just to touch a little bit on our homeownership program, we have already selected our buyers for this property. What we do, we periodically host open application periods and we share information with the Human Services Coalition, social service agencies, schools, social workers, food pantries, childcare centers, to really make sure that we're casting a wide net as we recruit. We have a committee that reviews those applications. Our buyers also have to pre-qualify with a bank. And then ultimately our board of directors helps approve applicants, for selection into our program. So our buyers for 610 West Courts are a very patient family of 6. They have 4 kids between the ages of 5 and 14, and they are living in a very small 3-bedroom apartment right now. They've kind of been living in trailers and apartments just because they cannot afford something different in Ithaca. They have been trying to become homeowners for 8 years now, and honestly, they're doing all the right things. They've taken homebuyer training classes. They're trying to save some funds. It just has not been enough to qualify for a mortgage. So very excited to partner with them. One question from our application was about the floodplain. 610 West Court Street is within the floodplain in the new proposed maps for the city of Ithaca. We are aware of that. We have built in the floodplain before in Trumansburg and in Portland a couple of times. We're planning for a poured concrete foundation, which will raise the house up above the flood level, and all the utilities and mechanicals and things will be up above the floodplain. We were also successful in getting LOMAs in Trumansburg, which eliminated the need for our buyers to have flood insurance. So flood insurance is not included on the housing affordability worksheet with our application, but I did rerun those numbers. And we've kind of been given a range in terms of an estimate on flood insurance, but anywhere in that range, it does still fall within that affordability for 80% AMI for a family of 2 or more, and we have a household of 6. So if we do have to include flood insurance, the numbers all still work, and I'm happy to share those numbers if you would like. And one other budget related question that we had was about our project schedule, where we show we have $26,000 allocated for excavation and foundation work. And then the remaining funds we would use just kind of towards the modular house itself to reach that total of 95,000. And I think the way it's presented is just maybe not the best, so I apologize for that. It would be 26 for excavation and foundation, 69 for the rest, and that comes to a total of 95. And so on our actual budget, where we have those proposed non-personnel expenses, we have 95,000 for construction, and the excavation and foundation is included in that. So I think the numbers do work. I just think maybe I didn't present them the best way, so I apologize for any confusion on that. And that's most of what I have on my end because I'm out of time.
Any questions from board members? I think Shane was one. Oh.
Yeah.
Apologies, Shane.
Thank you very much. Can you talk a little bit about how the sweat equity piece works in this project, given the modular home part?
Yeah, sure. So our buyers do contribute 350 hours of sweat equity. That's on-site constructing homes and also doing other volunteer work and events and things with us. Because we have other houses going, and this is typical right now too, our buyers also work on each other's habitat homes. So they'll be able to do some work on their own house. There'll still be finished work and things to do with the modular, with trim and painting and landscaping and, you know, constructing the porch, things like that. And then they'll earn the rest of their hours on the other homes that we're building right now.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I had a question about, you mentioned that the home will meet the city of Ithaca's energy stretch code. Are you planning to be using electric heating for the house?
Yeah, so this house will have a heat pump. All of our houses, we've kind of shifted over to that in the past couple of years. So they'll be the same for Court Street. Yeah.
Seeing none. Thank you very much, Shannon.
Sure. Thanks.
Hey Shannon, so while I let Catholic Charities in, it's actually small repairs, turn. We have Delia and IURA.
Hi, everybody. My name is Delia Yarrow. I work at INHS. I'm the director of homeownership, so I am the person who oversees our minor repair program. I'm very proud to be here today to request funds to continue this important program. INHS has completed over our 40-year history with the minor repair program over 9,000 jobs. In 2024, we completed 130. 40 of those are jobs that we completed for homeowners in the city of Ithaca. The minor repair work that we do supports largely the most vulnerable homeowners in Ithaca. So we are supporting low-income folks, primarily seniors, but also folks who are single-parent households, cost-burdened, disabled. So anybody who is really needing help with repair work. The folks who are doing our minor repair specialists now are very skilled and able to tackle a wide range of repair needs, from fixing faucets to rebuilding steps to installing grab bars. They have just wonderful way of working through priorities and working with the homeowners. We receive lots of positive feedback from the folks that we work with about the work that they do, and also just the process of prioritizing those repairs. The way that INHS looks at home repair needs, minor repair is a piece of what we're doing, but not everything. So we have funding to tackle larger repair needs. And when Corey and Griffin go out to look at a house, they are looking both at what can they do for the homeowner, but also they are taking a look at the whole house and identifying larger repair needs and referring folks to our major repair funding. This sounds like a small thing, but actually it's tremendously valuable. Not people,
it's really complicated to know what looks ugly and isn't an issue versus what looks fine and is about to cause a major issue. So their expertise has been really valuable to the homeowners that we serve. You asked us about our outreach efforts. So we do targeted mailings to seniors. We have done some outreach in Nate's Floral Estates, which is the manufactured home community behind Wegmans, for folks who don't know. And we did get asked to leave. It is private property, so it is at their discretion to request us to leave. We have since circled back with the management company, and they have agreed to take applications to keep at their office. And they have also promised me that I will be able to attend a resident meeting some point in the future to discuss the funding that INHS has. So we are working hard to create bridges in that relationship, I would say. The other question that the committee had for me was, where is INHS with federal funding? So in my department, we provide purchase assistance, education, repair assistance, and in conjunction with our Director of Manufactured Housing, manufactured home replacement assistance. The contracts that we currently have that have federal funding in all of those uses are $5 million. So if those get cut, that will be a horrendous loss to our community. But we have other state, local, and private funding. We've been very aggressive in looking for sources of funding because the populations that we are serving with IURA funding, that funding pays salary costs, but we still need to identify funding to pay for materials as much as we possibly can. That we have been successful at increasing private capital to pay the cost of repair funding. So I'm not gonna say that our work will certainly be impacted. I cannot imagine a world in which someone charitably would give us $5 million over the course of 2 years to do the work that we are doing. So if we get cut, we will definitely be impacted, but we are strategizing about how to handle that and how to prioritize and cut funding, and also working really hard to identify other sources of funding. I did want to share just one. Oh, and you asked about the minor repair program specifically. So we get funding that is federal through the Office for the Aging. So that's the only federal funding in the minor repair program. And that usually totals about $50,000 a year. In our request for funding, we requested funding for radon testing. So we have always done radon testing if we're doing a major repair program, but because we serve so many more folks with our minor repair program, and because radon is a significant issue locally, we probably haven't done a study, but my gut is going to be like 30% of the tests that we run, and we're serving a 7-county service area, are coming back high for radon, including lots in the city of Ithaca. Part of our request was to spend staff time setting up the radon tests, sending them in and then counseling folks and identifying sources to remediate high radon. So again, this funding would pay for the remediation, but we do have internal funds that can be used in the case of an emergency, and also some New York State funding that would work for that as well, because radon is odorless and you can't tell if it is in your house. folks don't know, and so we've got having this pilot to kind of identify that and in a broader scope would be a smart way to help folks. I grew up on Hancock Street on the north side, and we didn't know we had high radon until we sold and the buyer did a radon test. So it is an issue locally and one that we would like to sort of expand our service area, or our service reach on. So that was part of our request.
Thank you, David. Any questions? Jim?
Yeah, thank you so much for your presentation. I was curious if you do any weatherization repairs as part of the minor repair program. I know that, I do some work with, like the Empower Plus program and other federal funding available to help folks with their home energy, and often there are pre-existing barriers to that. So do you do any weatherization work through this program?
Minor repair will do weather stripping. It's more the major repair program where we're gonna collaborate with a NYSERDA contractor with COPCO through their WAP funding and include that in our scope of work if at all possible. So yeah, I would say the minor repair piece of it is usually what we're prioritizing for that are like very urgent needs. Someone came out of the hospital and they need a grab bar. That is what we're gonna do, and only get down to any kind of weatherization program funding through minor repair if there are other things on their punch list that we really need to tackle. Yeah. But we do work on the other side of the world with that and are always watching for those opportunities for sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I just was wondering, I just wanted to clarify with the major program, which you are not proposing now. You have outside contractors that you work with, but with the minor repair program, you have in-house staff, so you don't have to worry about trying to find contractors to work with. Can you talk about that for 30 seconds?
Oh, totally. Yeah, so for the minor repair program, we have two minor repair specialists, Corey and Griffin, and then we have two project managers who actually also visit clients and come up with scopes of work. So Griffin and Corey are doing the actual work, and Heather and Lewis do the some of the visits and the home evaluations. And then if it's shoveling, it's me. Because I can shovel, I'm qualified to shovel. So I have been doing that every time there's a snow weekend or weekday. And it's been a snowy winter, let me just tell you. Yes.
Thank you.
Sometimes, since I have a minute, I will say there are things like we identified an electrical panel that was an extreme fire hazard in a home in Ithaca. We couldn't use any of our major repair program because it's sort of like in that $2,000-ish range. And so if we have funding that's flexible, we will hire a contractor to do that work and supervise it. So in this instance, it was in a manufactured home. The city requires that the contractor have their manufactured home mechanics license, which is a New York State certification. We could not identify an electrician who had that. So my coworker, Griffin, was at the house while they did the work so they could work under his license. And then we got through all the city inspections. So we will do all sorts of shenanigans to make a thing work. And we are always looking, shenanigans, the wrong word, but like, yeah. Something to make a thing move forward. That one, we were very concerned. The homeowner has significant health problems and she lives alone, and this electrical box was dangerous. So we were really worked hard to get to yes on that. So there is some contractors, if they have a specialty and we can't tackle the issue. And we work very hard to develop our contractor pool to get them trained to do everything that we can to make sure that when there's a need identified, we can kind of get to yes on that if at all possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Okay, thanks, Celia.
So our next presenters are from Catholic Charities Security Deposit Assistance, and as you'll probably note on your schedule, they are going to be speaking about the home funded portion of the project, which is the actual security deposits funded by home. They've also put in an application to support the staffing costs for that work, and that's a separate application. They'll be presenting them both together. So if they need 24 minutes, they can have 24 minutes, but because two projects. So little different there, and I see Michaela and Leslie both there. So you two, whenever you're ready, go ahead and start, and that's when the timer will start.
So I am Leslie. I am from Catholic Charities, Samaritan Center Coordinator over here. And our presentation will probably not take the entire 24 minutes. So you have that to look forward to. So what I am going to talk about is our security deposit assistant program and staffing support kind of wrapped into one. So the main thing is we see firsthand every day the struggles that our community faces when trying to establish housing. Renters are required to pay first month rent and a security deposit, which can cost multiple thousands of dollars before they even have the keys to move in. For low-income families, this upfront cost really is an impossible barrier. It keeps them stuck in sometimes unstable and unsafe housing or straight up homelessness. Our security deposit assistance program can remove that barrier, helping people quickly move into housing and ultimately reduce homelessness in Ithaca. Some of the history of the program, for over 25 years, we've been here providing a variety of assistance to low-income individuals. We noticed a gap in services for people that were not eligible for DSS housing assistance, but also not making enough to come up with first and security deposit for new housing. We also noticed Section 8 participants are struggling because they also could not come up with security deposit funding. It's not included in your general Section 8 voucher. So we came up with our own. It has remained one of the most utilized services here, other than our free clothing closet. And historically, upwards of 30% of the applicants to the security deposit program have been homeless or housing insecure. This is a one-time grant that can assist anywhere between 65 to 100 households a year at or below 60% AMI, which is generally 300% of the federal poverty level. In order to be eligible, applicants needed to provide a denial letter from the Department of Social Services. Landlords that participate in the program need to agree to the terms of the arrangement. Generally, they would need to provide a 12-month lease and consent to a third-party inspection of the unit, and they would need to allow the applicant to move in before receiving the guaranteed payment. Applicants at that time were approved for a partial payment, but they had to come up with the rest. Landlords would return the security deposit, still do return the security deposit directly to the tenants if they are in good standing at the end of their lease, so that they could use it on their next security deposit. This program has evolved since its inception. A couple of years ago, we were able to implement an eligibility guideline of once every 5 years. We were able to drop the requirement of a denial letter from the Department of Social Services, which is nice because sometimes that was taking up to the very last minute possible to award them that agreement. We can do the application virtually if needed, which is helpful for people who just can't get here for whatever reason. We continually follow the updates in the housing market, keeping up with policy changes in HUD, in Section 8 and rental assistance programs like FEMA. We attend community-wide housing meetings and trainings like things put on by the Continuum of Care. And we are actively involved with housing initiatives so that we can assist with evolving needs as they arise. Last year's funding, we served 89 households representing 150 people. 56% of those folks were housed in the city of Ithaca. The majority of our applicants have been single parents, and over 30% of them have been homeless or housing insecure. The average deposit was $994 from last year's funding. Some other notes: in the calendar year 2024, we used funds from 2023, 2022, and 2024 contracts to wrap those up. We're now down to about 44% of the 2024 funding year and expect to serve about 40 more households before the end of the fiscal year. Calls for aid with deposits and of course rental arrears are still high. We're processing about 2 requests a week, and it just continues apace. We're on one of the only resources for this financial aid in the county, and we want to be careful with our planning so we can avoid gaps in availability. The request is based on average deposits paid and number of anticipated requests. Actual deposits are up to the fair market rent of the unit leased. For 3-bedroom, that would be $2,051. We've generally seen rental increases for units of every bedroom size: $1,320 for studio, $1,489 for 1-bedroom, $1,702 for a 2-bedroom, and $2,051 for a 3-bedroom. And it has pretty much been even between 1, 2, and 3-bedroom units. Sorry, I dropped a page there. We have found that some of our participants could benefit from the direct support in finding a rental unit. We do not have a housing specialist on staff because there is already this person in the community working for Human Services Coalition. And we do have, and could segue into how this works, but we can also save that for our next presentation time. So I will wrap it up here with a minute to go.
Thank you. Clarification, Anissa, you had said that Catholic Charities could talk about the other application concurrently with this discussion, or should we go into questions about this?
It might have been lack of clarity on my part. I thought they were going to combine the presentation,
Okay.
but looks like they just wanted to do them back to back. So security deposit questions.
Okay. So any questions from board? Like some, I'm not sure. Oh, I'm sorry. Cheyenne. Here I go, yeah. I have age as an excuse.
Just one quick question, and this may be related to the services side. We did have some, we know that you partner with the Human Services Coalition to help families find the apartments. But it also, it seemed like in your application that there is some help in that degree. Can you talk just a little bit more about that?
I'm sorry, would you repeat that?
Yep, I'm just asking about that sort of space between partnering with Human Services and your own abilities in the office to support families finding apartments that are willing to take them to use this program.
Yeah, so we don't have a housing specialist on staff, partly because Human Services Coalition does, and partly because we don't have the funding for that, which is what this staffing agenda is for. We have seen the question of a rise of what do we do if our funding is cut? and we have seen the question arise of, why don't you have? And it's just, if a funding is cut, we definitely would not be able to pick up on that person to do that. And as I said, Human Services Coalition covers it. Is there more need for that? Yes, a lot of those folks have caseworkers at Section 8 who could help them with finding the housing. And those that don't could call the housing specialist at Human Services Coalition.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I was curious, I saw in your application, you said that you're typically able to follow up with about 30 to 50% of participants in the security deposit assistance program. Is there anything that you're doing to try to increase the rate of people you can maintain contact with after they go through the program?
We do our follow-up about 6 months and then again at a year. If we cannot reach the person, we reach out to the landlord to see if the person is still there. A lot of our participants have their phone number changed from the time they come and apply with us to the time that we're able to reach out to them. And when folks come in, if they're repeat customers, for lack of a better word, we will look into their household and see if there are any changes. We reach about 60% of our security deposit recipients, and if not them, their landlords.
Thank you.
Do you track whether, when the clients initially come to you, do you track whether they are new to the area or current residents?
They have to be a resident of Tompkins County in order to receive this fund, and for the most part, they are. It's a matter of where in the county that they reside.
Right, but are they relatively new? Are they new to the county or have they been here a while?
It's both. Some people have only been here for a couple of months and some people have been here for decades.
And it's been reported over the years that there are some landlords who refuse to take housing choice vouchers, which my understanding is that's illegal. If you run into a landlord who refuses to take a voucher, do you report them?
We do not report them. We encourage the tenant to make any kind of call or email. Because yes, it's supposed to be illegal, but someone did win a case that they don't have to do that. Because I believe the court said that yes, this is actually a violation of their privacy rights to require third-party inspection of this unit.
We would also refer people to Law New York.
Okay, thank you. So we're ready for the staffing portion of your staffing application to support security deposits. So whenever you're ready, I don't know if you're both presenting or one of you, but whoever starts, Charles will start the timer when you start speaking.
It's, what number is it?
17.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, are you set on your end? Do you know who's going to start the presentation?
I thought I heard someone else speak at the same time that I started. So.
Okay, well, there's no questions on the 10, so sorry if there was an interruption, but go ahead.
So the process involved for security deposit can take some time. We could have anywhere upwards of 6 other organizations involved. Generally, if a person will come in and apply, we would pre-screen them, you know, are you income eligible, which would require us and possibly DSS and their employer for 3 other organizations involved. It can be time consuming if we have to calculate based on 8 pay stubs. If they're a new hire, then we would go off an employment verification form. We would involve their landlord, you know, because the landlord has to sign an agreement with them as well. We would have the unit inspected, which could involve 2 other agencies if they have Section 8. If not, it would just be 1 agency. The last and final agency would be IURA, taking the finalized application in. Sorry, I got my notes out of order here. Michaela, if you wanted to jump in.
Sure. So we're discussing how many agencies are and all the collaboration that's involved with each application. So for each application, there's a minimum of about 6 different organizations, which is all coordinated by our staff, by Leslie. So Catholic Charities is the first organization that screens for eligibility. The second and third organizations are DSS and the employer, the participant's employer, and that's for income verification purposes. The fourth organization involved is the landlord, who has to agree to the terms of the program and provide the lease. And then the fifth coordination is the inspection requests are sent to TCA. And then a housing choice voucher budget is sent to either of the IHA or TCA. And then the sixth organization involved is IURA, who would who receives the completed application and makes the final approval. But more of the more complex cases would require additional collaboration, including Law New York for landlord mediation sometimes, and occasionally participants will have caseworkers who are assisting with translations or just general advocacy. So there's a lot of coordination that goes into each of these applications. And I think Leslie earlier said that there's at least 2 new applications per week, which doesn't include any of the previous things that she had been working on. So it's about 40% of her time is the workload is for these applications. Each application generally takes about 2 weeks, could take longer. It could also be done in 24 hours. Like it really just depends. The average though is about 2 weeks. So yeah, there's that. Leslie, did you want to?
I would say that the 24-hour thing is extremely rare. This isn't something that can really be used for rapid rehousing, in part because of those 5 or 6 other agencies that are involved. Sometimes we can do it if everyone has their stuff together, but usually there's a lot of follow-up calls or emails on my part to caseworkers at Section 8 or with the landlord. It does rarely involve Law New York, but once in a while it does happen.
Yeah. And then to also go back to, we started to talk about it in the first grant. But as far as people calling to say, I'm interested in security deposit. I know I'm going to need it, but I don't have an apartment. That is one of the first initial requirements, is to have an apartment on hold with a landlord so that they have already started. But there is a number of folks who are just generally needing help finding apartments and not knowing where to go. But before, I feel like the Human Service Coalition's housing specialist is just a piece of that. We also have applications here that we keep up on here in our lobby. So anyone can come in to take an application. Those are for some of the larger property managers in town that have their applications online. We're also willing to fax that in, scan that in if they need it. We also recommend that if folks have a Section 8 voucher, that they speak with their caseworker. Sometimes people forget that they're a resource as well. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure to go back and let you guys know that we're also providing the applications and a landlord contact list if that's needed or requested. think that's generally all I have for the security delivery. I'm not sure if we spoke to the federal funding question yet.
Yeah, I think you did. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, nope, that's if we already did. I mean, generally, if there is a federal funding cut that is not related to IURA, it would impact some of our programs like OPWDD, EFSP, which is our FEMA. We do back rent assistance. Our NOAP program, which is our SNAP food stamps program, and our HUD housing that we have in Tioga. So it would affect those programs. We haven't experienced any cuts yet. However, if they were to be impacted, it potentially could affect our staffing capacity and operational costs. And obviously, if the IURA HUD funding was cut or impacted, this program would have to be paused indefinitely. It's 100% of the program. The funding goes directly to security deposits, so it would be paused. And we also, I'm not sure if Leslie had mentioned this, but about 38% of our applicants were homeless or housing insecure last year. So without that support, that number could easily double. And a significant portion of our coordinators' workload is taken up with security. So losing that funding would reduce hours potentially as well. But we do hope that, we have your continued support. We'll be able to help keeping our community resilient and housed stably.
Okay, thank you, Leslie and Michaela. Any questions? Well, I have one. If the client, once they're in an apartment, is having any issues and is in danger of losing their housing, will this funding provide assistance in that case, or do you refer the client to someone else?
We would refer them. This funding is strictly for the security deposit itself.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Catholic Charities.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next scheduled presenter is Black Hens Universal, and I saw them come into the waiting room. Harry, you have a total of 12 minutes, 8 minutes for the prepared part of the presentation, and 4 minutes for Q&A only. And so you'll see two timers, if you can see them on your screen, and we'll start the first timer as soon as you start speaking.
Hello, my name is Harry Smith from Black Hens Universal. I appreciate the opportunity to make this proposal to you guys. We have site control of a property at 614 West State Street at this moment. It's right next door to 612 West State Street, where we have the daycare up and running for the last couple of weeks now. Our objective is to be able to gain the location, then be able to reinvent it by rehabilitating it. And our agenda for future use is to be able to add additions to it, recreate the front space that is already there for storefront, because we want to create a storefront retail space also. And the other space would be in perfect synchronization. It works very well with the ability to create another family daycare specific space again, which is already another thing that's highly needed. There is space in the back, along with a structure that we would like to then tear down for future reference and be able to build more housing in the back. So that would allow us, at this point, we have 4 units that are up and running there at that location. We're looking to hopefully be able to have the store frontage, the daycare, and believe it's 4 to 6 additional residential properties built. Right now, I'm working with my advisory board, which we put together specifically for this housing, which would consist of Gladys Brinkman, who is the CEO of Block Business Leaders of Colors, who is very essential in helping with the business model. My other advisors would be Elsa Hyde from Travis Hyde LLC, Kate De La Garza from INHS, as well as Melissa Shogo from USC Builders. I myself just graduated from the CPC program, and I believe with the information that I've gotten and retained and the opportunity that I've gotten from graduating that program, along with the help of my advisory board, who is more than capable of being able to help me manage to get through and do this correctly. I also would like to just say that we are also reaching out to the human resources there at the city, because I recall at one point in time when we were discussing funding with the city that they were happy and willing to help us to facilitate the movement of the funding, and I would very much appreciate that help if it's still open. And I'm reaching out to them now to see if that is a possibility. Um, Other than that, we are also working with Holt Architecture, who has already given us a very reasonable and helpful community price that we're already working with them to make payments on. If we're allowed to go forward, that we'll be able to take care of. They have everything listed where they basically walk us through all the aspects of this, and the person that we're working with is she's specified and has done daycare housing before. So that's it.
Okay, thank you. So time for questions. Any more questions?
Are there any questions from any of the board members? Okay. Harry, it sounds like you have a team that'll help with the financing, the permitting, and is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What about the construction team, the folks who are going to do the actual work? Could you describe what that team looks like?
Well, if you've seen my resume, I've had, oh God, at least 30, almost 30 years of construction work, from masonry all the way to carpentry. I also have connections with all of the unions in our career resource program, and our general ideal would be to somehow find a way to allow all projects that BHU does to become another route for youth and young adult training, still continuously getting them their OSHA 10s, their hands-on experience and everything else, and still getting them prepared and ready for a future in the trades. So it would still be a collaborative addition between our programs and the many different organizations and companies that we work with, such as a USC Builds.
So you would have apprentices doing the work, for want of a better term, and then you would be the primary supervisor?
Myself and other gentlemen that has the credentials for supervising.
Okay. I don't know if you've gotten this far yet, but is there any asbestos remediation needed?
It was told to me that there should be no asbestos, but still in all, it was part of the Holt breakdown of pricing. So I know that if there was, then we'd have to do all the precautionary things, build the tents up in order to keep the asbestos from spreading. But from my knowledge, there is no asbestos problem there, and there's no flooding hazard in that area.
Okay, yeah, because that was the other part of the question, whether you have to take any flood mitigation measures. Do you have in your budget, though, if asbestos is found, you've allocated funds for that, which I understand can be quite expensive?
Yes, I believe Holt already had that in the package. They had the pricing for what it would be in case and everything else, and we already have that part established with Holt.
And then one other question has to do with the 612 West State. Is the daycare operating?
Yes, the daycare is up. It's rolling. She just had CDC come in and do a pop-up visit, and they loved it, and everything has been very well. We've been open for going on the third week, which is very helpful because, you know, the first time doing anything is a lot more than you thought it might be. So in my mind, it was something that was 1, 2, 3, but I learned it's not. But now that I've already established one, I pretty much know the step by step in order to get another one going.
Thanks, Gary. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about, the acquisition of the building in the first place on your budget. You indicate that that part is 125,000, and that's quite low for property values of a space like that. So you also mentioned that you have site control, so can you tell us how you came up with that estimate?
The estimate is actually a down payment estimate for the property, as we work with AFCU, INHS, and other organizations for home ownership that have programs also here in Ithaca. What was the other part? Oh, how I got it. What we're doing at this moment is, in order to have site control, we subleased it from the owner. Well, we leased it from the owner, and the owner allows us to have site control and to manage the space at this point in time, as we are working on trying to have ownership of the property.
So if I may follow up, so you currently are leasing the property?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and, just something that we're asking lots of applicants, because the overall requests add up to much more than we can approve. Could you talk a little bit about what would happen if we were not able to fully fund the whole amount? could you put down less as a down payment? Or what would be some possibilities if you had to scale this,
Mhm.
our funding down?
In speaking with the owner, we already had a discussion about whether or not I would be able to have the full amount or whatever else. He said we'd sit down, discuss, and figure it out because he really wants our organization to be able to do this because he's for the community.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that wraps up the Q&A session. So thank you for being here, Harry. And next we'll move to work preserve, job training, job placements. Bethany and Jordan are here to talk about that.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, so whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. Good morning. I'm Bethany Creasy, the interim director at Historic Ithaca, and I'm joined here by Jordan Govanelli, our work preserve manager. We'd just like to start by thanking you all for your time and continued support of our work preserve program. Historic Ithaca's mission to preserve the built environment can be broken down into 3 pillars: education, advocacy, and action. Our work preserve program educates participants on the trades. It teaches them to advocate for preservation through repair over replacement. And through action, we place them into jobs that can become careers in the historic trades. Valuable IURA funding has allowed us to train and support participants who rely on our services to gain transferable skills, to access local employment opportunities. And as you may know, we do not receive other federal funding for this project, which makes the IURA support essential. In the past 3 years, we have been able to diversify our funding streams for the work preserve program through local grant opportunities. Thanks to the additional funding, we're able to hire a second part-time trainer, which allows us to meet the higher job placement goals that you see in our application. However, like many organizations of our size, we face limitations that the loss of funding would have a significant impact on our ability to serve the community. Without these funds, we would be forced to drastically reduce the number of participants that we're able to place, the staff available to support them, and the supplies needed for effective programming. Since this funding directly supports employees' wages, losing it would mean reallocating our already limited resources to sustain just one position, reducing our capacity and leaving little to no budget for the critical training materials. I believe I can speak for many mission-driven organizations in Tompkins County who are struggling to pay the county's living wage. In today's job market, where for-profit employers can offer on-the-job training, higher pay, and better benefits, it has become increased difficulty fueled by inflation, a more competitive job market, and the increased need for grant funding have made staffing this program increasingly difficult. To address this, we need to shift our focus on hiring additional trainers eager to learn and develop their skills until we're fully prepared to train others. Without increased funding, we face growing challenges in attracting and retaining skilled employees, and IURA's funding becomes crucial to continue to pay our employees a sustainable living wage. At this point, I'll turn it over to Jordan, who will speak more about the program itself.
Thanks, Bethany. I've been working for this program for over 3 years. During my time here, we've developed our curriculum, our development programs, our partnerships. They've vastly improved thanks to our staff's commitment and hard work. We would not be able to accomplish this without the generous funding from the IURA and our other sources. Of the 6 participants that we've committed to finding placements for, we anticipate 3 full-time placements, with retention being 1 year or more. Due to the varying age range of our participants, we assume that roughly 50% will still be in school full-time, making part-time employment the most likely outcome. It's however important to note that our retention work often extends beyond the first job that people receive upon leaving our program. Many of our placed participants come back to us after a year or 2 and ask if they can continue to use this as a reference or if we can help them with their resume. One participant in particular comes to mind as a great example of this. There's a young man who was in our program 2 years ago who walks by our building on his way to work and from work. He frequently stops in and asks me for advice about work, other goals that he has in his life, for example, like getting his license, things like that. The space and ongoing support that we provide him serves as a typical example of the long-term guidance we're able to provide for all of our participants. Our placement goals are based on the previous year's success, as well as the strength of our recruitment strategies. We adjust our goals based on a number of factors, including staffing, community connections, participant demographics, and data. Our 2025 job placement goal is higher than previous years because of this additional local funding that has allowed us to hire part-time trainers. This additional staff member increases our capacity to support and train more participants. In 2024, our traditional partnership organizations had a number of challenges with turnover, creating fewer opportunities to onboard participants. In the previous years, we've had guaranteed 2 participants coming through our partnership with TST BOCES. In 2025, we've added additional partnership organizations, including New Roots Charter School, which has increased our number of onboarded participants, and that added partnership increases that guaranteed number from 2 to 10. This increase, combined with our open enrollment, will undoubtedly increase the number of people we're able to serve. We've made many notable improvements over the past few years, such as digitizing our record keeping, which helps to ensure our longevity and consistency in our program. In the last 3 years, we've developed formal curriculum and individualized participant files that help track onboarding and offboarding. We've created a really robust skill tracking tool that serves to guide our individualized training. And we've focused our program on introducing participants to trade skills such as carpentry, electrical, and plumbing. This vastly increases their employability and opens doors for them in other sectors of the job market. These trade skills, and I think more importantly, the confidence that they build in our participants, makes them more likely to not only get jobs, but sustainable careers that they can continue working throughout their lives. I want to thank you for your attention and your time. Thanks for the opportunity to continue doing this work. I invite anybody to reach out to me if you ever want to see our workshop space or the projects that they've been working on, and I'll open it up to questions from you guys.
Thanks very much. Questions from agency members?
Thank you so much for your presentation. I know that the Tompkins County living wage report just came out last week and it's increased quite significantly. It's almost at $25. Is the budget for this project allow for paying trainees at that rate?
Our trainees are not paid at that rate. Our trainers are not quite at that rate yet either. I think the only person that's at that rate and works for this program is Steve, who's managing it. Our trainees are paid through, I'm sorry, did you ask about the trainees or trainers?
I asked about the trainees, but I'm curious about both.
Yes, so our trainees are paid, not all of them are paid. Some of them who come to us through the school system get school credit instead of getting paid. And our trainees are paid typically through our GGSK program or through the county JobLink program or through the Learning Web's career exploration program. And I think that the rate that they're making right now is about 15.30 something an hour.
Time of when I invite you, is there anything else that you had to cut from your presentation you'd like to add for our consideration?
I don't think so.
Thank you all for your time.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Okay, the reuse team is also here. Please feel free to come up.
I mean, I'm probably not inaccurate, but
You already come, and I think you know whenever you're ready, the timer will start.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Robin Elliott. I'm the COO of Finger Lakes Reuse. My colleagues Abby and Lauren are also here with me today to talk to you. We're here to talk to you today about our Reset Job Training Program and our request for funding. First, I'd like to acknowledge with gratitude that these funds have generously supported Reuse and the Reset Job Training Program for most years since 2013. And that includes providing critical funding for starting the program, for hiring the first coordinator that helped create that job training program. Since then, this program has grown, and to talk about federal funding and impacts on the program and on Finger Lakes Reuse this year. We do rely on this funding for Reset. This model of apprenticeship stipends, funding that supports paid apprenticeships for this program, having a model of 50% of apprenticeship stipends paid by federal funding and 50% supported by merchandise sales at Finger Lakes Reuse has really worked well throughout this time period. We've been able to take on the cost of staffing for the program since and for recent years entirely by Finger Lakes Reuse. That has been a sustainable model for us. You've asked us if any other federal funding is impacting us. Fortunately, our unique business model, combining merchandise sales, grants, and individual giving means we're less reliant on other federal funding. While we are part of another EPA grant project that is now definitely on hold, our core programs and services are not impacted by other federal funding. As consumerism has continued to rise nationally over the last several decades, there is an acutely growing need for expanded reuse capacity here and everywhere. We're experiencing that pressure here in Tompkins County and in the city of Ithaca, especially in the form of rapidly growing material volumes brought to our reuse centers. FLR donation drop-offs have been growing at a rate of almost 30% year over year for the last 10 years. Finger Lakes Reuse to stretch resources to keep staff safe, to scale up, to improve our operational efficiencies. We've modified our facilities and equipment to respond to this local material supply. And we recognize that this community resource is also a workforce development opportunity. Material reuse can offer varied skills to multiple valuable career paths. And as a local employer, we today have 85 employees. Thanks to funding from the Appalachian Regional Commission, this year we have a warehouse manager and warehouse assistant for the first time. And they're piloting working warehouse activities in a space that we rent at the former DOT site right next to the Ithaca Farmers Market. And there's where we have overflow pallets of materials that have been donated that we haven't been able to get to processing. And they are piloting sorting materials to bring to our reuse centers. And they're also packaging materials to send out to bulk commodities, which is helping us manage excess volumes. As that project grows, we recognize there's potential for expanded training opportunities in a working warehouse, including deeper collaborations with our other workforce development partners at that site or at a site where there's a working warehouse. Now I'm going to pass it over to Lauren.
Good morning, I'm Lauren Sawyer, the Workforce Coordinator at Finger Lakes Reuse. The Reuse Skills and Employment Training Program, or RESET, provides job training opportunities to anyone facing barriers to employment. Those barriers include experience in incarceration, disabilities, substance use recovery, and mental health needs. Each trainee fills out an online application, and we currently have 32 individuals on our waiting list. RESET currently offers 2 successful curriculums. The first is the RESET Retail Customer Service, which is a paid from day one training that takes place in our community reuse centers. Participants are paid $18.45 Tompkins County living wage for 525 hours in a flexible and supportive work environment. RESET Retail provides apprentices with gainful and meaningful skills transferable to many career paths in retail, materials management, clean energy, and more. Participants can expect to learn a variety of hard and soft skills, including but not limited to merchandising, product testing, inventory management, organization, cash management, time management, active listening, leadership skills, and excellent customer service. RESET Technology is our longest running curriculum and has made a comeback during the third quarter of 2024 with 7 participants after being on a hiatus due to the COVID pandemic. RESET Tech provides apprentices with the opportunity to learn through hands-on classroom instruction, computer refurbishment, software and operating system installation, IT customer support, teamwork, and reuse center operations.
Through this program is typically unpaid, thanks to funding through United Way of Tompkins County. We secured funding to provide 10 Reset Tech participants with a $500 stipend course over 2 years. In 2024, Reset had 73 applicants, worked with a total of 26 paid apprentices, and 5 of them disclosed that they had previous experience in incarceration. 15 participants successfully completed the program, with 6 finding permanent unsubsidized employment. Currently, there are 6 Reset participants training in our retail and customer service program and 1 in our technology program. Now I'll pass it to Abby.
Hello, everyone. I'm Abby Ball, and I'm the development coordinator at Reuse. For the 2025-26 project titled Reuse IT and Clean Energy Job Skills Training, we are requesting $148,541,000 with a total project cost of over $500,000 to work with 30 paid apprentices. Our project will place at least 20 City of Ithaca residents into permanent unsubsidized employment post-program. In recent years of this program, we have experienced an increase in participants with higher barriers relating to mental health, substance use disorder, and recent history of incarceration, leading to difficulty completing the program. We have identified the need for both internal training for our store managers and staff trainers and to better support trainees while at work, as well as connecting with better local resources to help participants with their needs outside of work to have a more holistic support to improve project outcomes. Through Reset, Reuse collaborates with Cornell Cooperative Extension Career Pathways Project, including their job training program for clean energy skills, Energy Warriors. This program connects Reuse Reset apprentices to clean energy training opportunities with local employers. Black Power has left Ithaca, but many other green employers are involved.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that is your time.
Thank
So,
you.
I know one of my questions would be to invite you to speak further on that, but I want to take questions from agency members first.
Thanks.
So any questions from agency members?
I just had one. It was mentioned that EPA funding was lost. Which program did that impact?
So it actually was for a new project, so it isn't impacting one of our core programs and services. Yeah,
Thank you.
no problem.
One of my questions is, so I see, right, the guarantee of at least 20 individuals in the permanent, how do we calculate that? What are, and what sort of like, I know that it's been challenging to hit those targets year over year. How do we know that we're like very confident that we're gonna hit this number?
Sure. So actually, 2024 was a little bit of an unusual year. In 2023, we hit our target, no problem. In 24, we did lose our workforce coordinator with short notice. We had several months where we didn't have our coordinator in position, so that's part of what impacted that. But we also, as mentioned, have been experiencing higher barriers in our participants, and what we're doing to address that is bringing in outside trainers to work with our staff. We're going to continue that this year. So, our staff and our reuse centers are really participating in the training, right? They're the ones working alongside our trainees every day. And so having them have better resources on how to work with individuals who are dealing with things outside of work, right? And be more supportive and be more prepared is something that we feel confident is going to have a better impact, to have created more supportive work environments. And then to have better connections, stronger connections to resources in the community that can help them with those issues that are happening outside of work. We think that kind of holistic support circle is a key best practice that we see that works well in other training programs in the nation. So we're working on right now on talking to our partners on getting that stronger for our trainees.
Thank you. And just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
If you were to encounter obstacles or barriers as you strove towards that target, what mitigation tactics do you have in place to address that?
If we were to like be.
If this number was
numbers.
harder to hit than you expected, how would you all prepare to course correct?
Sure. So we, one reality is that we have a really big wait list, right? So we've got over 30 people on our wait list right now for the program. So one reality is that we have the ability to screen our wait list for individuals that are more likely to succeed in the program right now. That's not something we've had the ability to do before. We haven't had that many people waiting. So that's something that's going to be a strength of ours this year. Looking for individuals who are more work ready to start is going to be a strength. And then being able to work with people in our program. If someone who is in our program right now and is not succeeding well, is struggling, and we are not having success with them, being able to refer them to another program that is more supportive. We have partners like A4TD, Challenge Workforce Solutions, who have more direct job coaching, who are a different kind of work environment than we have. Being able to help direct refer them to a program like that and away from our more independent work environments, rather than trying to keep and retain them, would be a solution.
Thank you.
Yeah, trust.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stuff we have on a lesson from Jack's hospitality and family training program.
Great, Jennifer, and council, public comment.
Seems very loud. Welcome, and whenever you're ready, the timer will start.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak. My name is Lonnie Jenkins. I'm Program Coordinator for the Hospitality Employment Training Program. I have GIAC Executive Director, Dr. Leslie McBee-Claiborne with me. We should start by talking about HETP and the assist low to middle income underemployed individuals and finding work in Tompkins County. Many of these individuals face systemic barriers, could be transportation or childcare, immigration status, things like that, that we try to help them overcome and kind of get them in a good position to be consistently at work every single day. Our program is set up for them to come to class every day, Monday through Friday at this point, and ultimately building good habits that will sustain their employment out in the workforce. Our funding is completely provided locally, so federal funding is not affect us at this point. We offer 2 cohorts, or we're planning on offering 2 cohorts this year. With the right dollars, we could look to offer more next year in 2026. We have at least 10 participants in our cohorts. We try to hit a success rate of about 70%, which means about 14 permanent employments placed. What does that look like for HETP? We understand that not everybody is in the same space when it comes to the timeline. So after classes are complete, we would take a look at the person, see where they're at. Some may not be ready for employment, and we will offer a 120-hour internship, and then move into part-time work, full-time work. Ultimately, in order to meet that permanent employment regulation, which is needed for program completion, we would ask them to complete 120 hours, either part-time or full-time. So that looks to be about 5 to 6 weeks for a part-time employee, 3 to 4 weeks for a full-time employee before they can reach program completion. Roughly about 85% of our participants of our permanent employment participants, would be part-time, understanding that we need to kind of build them up and work with them in their individual needs to make sure that they're ready to go into full-time employment and be self-sufficient, which is the end goal for all of our participants, self-sufficiency, making sure that they're not relying on government assistance, things like that. They can take care of themselves through their own work and their paycheck every month. I want to talk about the difference, the participants facing many different challenges. We work with them consistently through the time that they walk in the door and do their intake information. You know, we do our classroom sessions where we're working on job readiness and making network connections with different employers in the community, and financial management and things that go along with just everyday life. You know, it's not just the job readiness. So even when somebody comes through the program and they don't finish in that program year, it's important to us to not give up on them and to continue that work. So sometimes after the program year ends, we continue working with our participants and allowing them to still reach program completion by finding full-time or part-time employment. This is how I feel may lead to the lack of clarity in our program outcomes. Sometimes we'll have somebody finish the program and get completion outside of their program year where they started. And so those numbers still will affect our bottom line at the end of the day. Again, that leads to our placement goal being slightly higher in years past, because we still want to hit that 70% success rate. And we're still kind of adding 1 or 2, 3 participants from previous years to finish the program and find employment. Again, I think this is what separates us from other job placement programs is our focus on the barriers, understanding that people come in all different shapes and sizes. And we're patient with them, making sure that they are able to complete the program at their own pace. You know, again, we continue to address the barriers during the program and even after classroom sessions. Then we want to make sure that they are comfortable and are ready to figure out how to address their employment problems. The last 5 years, we're coming out of the pandemic and recession, economic hardships, things like that. We are getting the unemployment numbers back to where they were before the pandemic. And even now, they're lower than they were 10 years ago when this program started. But the frustration, the hurdles that people have to go through with social services, they play a role on the mental aspects of each participant. Their psyches is frustration, like I said. This in itself, I feel like, is our greatest challenge, getting people to commit, getting people to get out of their comfort zone and come to class or even show up to work every single day, you know, putting out that effort. You know, it can be frustrating, you know, they're tired of it and fed up. Participants struggle to stay motivated even after program completion. You know, we like to assist them in having conversations with their employers, you know, advocating for themselves, and just how to manage everyday life. If somebody who's gone through the program is looking for a new job, we work with them on job searching, updating their resumes, having that conversation with their current employers saying, hey, I'm looking to move on. So life skills is a big part of our program as well. We wear many hats as HETP staff. It could be job coach, it could be financial advisor, it could be just a friend, someone to talk to. Again, all those things can be found at GIAC, where even the GIAC staff will be able to help and assist and make relationships with our participants. And so talking about that and the many different barriers that we address, we've added a program assistant full-time to assist with those barriers. And I think the biggest improvement for us is our view on hospitality. We're not just restricting it to the hotel and restaurant and businesses. We look at hospitality as a full-scale customer service. Hotel placement has not been the greatest with HETP, but it is something that we still strive for. But we're also opening it up to nursing, office administration, banking, and as we all know, childcare is a big issue here in Tompkins County, and so those are one of the avenues, extended avenues that we're looking to place people currently as well. Maybe you said all my time, so.
Great.
The questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ready for the Q&A session. By the way, I promised everybody 2 buzzers and there haven't been buzzers, so everybody's doing a great job. They're not buzzers.
Questions from the agency?
No, go ahead.
Shannon, please.
Just real quick, could you talk about some of the organizations that you partner with, to help find placement?
As far as employment, yes, we've worked with Tompkins Community Bank, in the past, we've done Cornell, we've put people at Taverna Bantley and Stafford Hotel. A lot of the, I mean, if we're talking internships, it could be different. We allow that the participants go out and find their place of comfortability at work. So I know that some people have gotten into transonic systems, SUNY Cortland, and Tompkins Chamber of Visit Ithaca as well. The History Center, we have somebody working the front desk, go down to the History Center. Ultimately, may want to speak on in Cultivari in the past, but now we work closely with Waterell and those organizations. It's just a wide variety. We have actually reached out to the Child Development Council as well, hoping to get training.
Thank you.
Cool.
As you indicated, the program has evolved from when it was initially started. Is that due to changes in the local economy and employment situations, or is it the changes in the clients who come to you for placement?
It could be a little bit of both. I would say majority of it would be the clients. We want to be able to find work that suits them. And trying to restrict them into whether it be a hotel or a restaurant, ultimately it doesn't lead them down a successful path if they're not buying into it themselves. So we want to be able to tailor our program to help meet the client need.
Mark, thank you for that question, and good morning, everyone. It's interesting, Carl, because I want to answer that a little differently. In addition to what Lonnie said, from the time this program started, although our focus has been on the hospitality industry, it's pretty much been directed towards customer service. One of our biggest success stories in this program from our inaugural year was a gentleman, and I know you've been here on this board for a while, who started working in computers in a computer program at Cornell. The biggest thing for him was just learning those confidence skills, those able to present, being able to interact, interpersonal relationship skills. And those are some of the foundational things that we teach in how to manage your own finances, etc. So that was one of our biggest success stories. So we've always had, people in different places. Now, because of economy and where our clients are, we expanded it a little bit more, but it's always been, a part of what we've done.
Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Kayla and possibly Siobhan have both joined us from Southside Community Center. Here to talk about Southside's Resiliency Hub, which is being recategorized from public service to public facility. So just as a reminder, there's 8 minutes for your prepared remarks and you'll see a timer on the screen. There actually won't be a buzzer, but if you go over, we'll interject. And then 4 minutes for Q&A. If you end your 8-minute presentation early, we'll begin Q&A earlier. And whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and start.
Hello, everyone. So this application that we submitted would be to help with the essentially renovation slash creation of a resiliency hub in the Southside neighborhood. This came from a collaboration between ourselves, Cornell University, and the city of Ithaca when the FEMA flood maps first were released and the tightest flats were included in this flood zone. Cornell University reached out to Southside and wanted our help in creating focus groups and also looking into the center to be a resiliency hub and what would that mean. And we've spent the last about 2 years looking at exactly what does that mean. This application focuses a lot on like the infrastructure the equipment of some of the needed materials. So like you see the blowers, the solar panels, the water purifying systems, simply because there's a lot of like infrastructure that essentially needs to be upgraded before we're able to serve the community in this format the way that we would like to. And then also it's paired with our kitchen renovation that we've been talking about for a couple of years now as well. And that's one of the key elements in this project is renovating the kitchen so that when it does come time for a flood, we are able to also serve the community that we are housing. And then within the resiliency hub, there would also be like heating and cooling. We will be a heating and cooling station for extreme weathers for any folks who need to stop in, cool down, or even warm themselves up. We would hope to be able to once again have the solar panels, one, so that we can start reducing our carbon footprint and start using more electrified equipment materials here in the center, because we are a 90-year-old building, so we have to upgrade ourselves. And that's pretty much the gist of it. I don't know if you wanted to add more, Siobhan.
I do. So I know there was a question about whether Southside was in the flood zone. And we are not. The T of Cleveland and Plain are not in the direct FEMA flood zone, which is why when Rebecca Brenner came to talk to us here about the beginnings of thinking about even a resiliency hub, she thought this was a good place to start. We already serve meals. We have the space to hold single people, families, kids. So yeah, that's why the start of this, there is no resiliency hub. There's nothing like this right now. So we, along with Cornell and Niagara Mohawk, are this is the playbook. We are creating that right now. As far as the drains in the building, there was new drainage put in, sump pumps. So the basement does not flood anymore. A little bit of water seepage because it is stone, but no flooding anymore.
And then in terms of the funding, because we also seen that we do have the security, and we can work on getting letters if need be from Leo Webb's office, also the city of Ithaca. We just had a meeting with Park Foundation, and the grant that we applied for, we didn't get this round, but they did give us, they're giving us about 25 to 30,000 to hire on additional help, so that we can get a clearer and more concise plan.
An owner's representative.
Yes, an owner's representative. Because like Siobhan said, this is the first of a resiliency hub. We're developing the blueprint. We know there's going to be several phases to this project. And Siobhan and I, this is something new that we're both taking on. So the Park Foundation seen that we needed some of that additional support, and they're going to provide us a grant to get that. So we can also look and see, okay, this is like what we need to complete before we can even get into phase one, right? Which is some of that electrical panels,
The fire
panels, things like that, upgrading our internet access because the internet here is terrible. And also if we're talking about housing folks, you know, with the day and age that we're in, we're also talking about Wi-Fi and the need for that to communicate. So yeah, so there's also some of that infrastructure that the city is also working with us to develop. What does that look like with the funds that we have set aside with them, which is the 200,000. And then essentially with the Leo Webb's 250, we will be doing some of the renovations and like the knocking down of the walls and purchasing some more of the equipment. And then right now with this first round of Park Foundation money, we will be using that to find an owner representative and have the owner representative and our project manager work all together so we can develop that plan. And then go up for their second round of funding again for the $100,000. So that's also but that 100,000 is unsecured, and we would have to wait to the second round of grants to know if we would get that. And then of course, Rebecca Brenner has secured about $25,000 split between two grants from Cornell University as well. And we actually are having a meeting with her today at 2 o'clock to discuss what will we be doing with those funds, and what does that look like moving forward for the Resiliency Hub.
We did it with a little time to spare.
Yes, indeed, guys, great. Thank you so much. We can turn to Q&A at this point. Agency members. Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm curious if you have an estimate of, in the event that there is an emergency and displaced people need to be housed at Southside, do you have a guess of how many people the building would be able to support?
So right now, our gym alone can fit, if we're talking about housing people, sleeping and whatnot, about 150 comfortably. Standing room is 300 in our gym alone. So if we're thinking space and sleeping bags or whatever else, I would say 150 in the gym. And then in each of the other spaces, it would be between 50 on the smaller end and possibly 75 to 100 in our upstairs space, give or take. I mean, if it's more children and smaller people, we can fit more. But in this neighborhood, because some of us are in the flood zone, some of us are not, our priority would be the flats and Clinton Street, where they would absolutely go under.
And then also PRI is also being looked at as another space to house folks if in an event of a flood on the hills. And we're also looking at that relationship between how do we provide food to those folks up at PRI. If they are cut off, yes, if they're cut off from downtown due to flooding, what that would look like, and what we would need to have that successful partnership.
Now, with a building renovation, that number goes up significantly. Right now, I would say about 500, comfortably.
Good morning. Could you clarify how the funds you're requesting from this agency would be used?
Yeah. So what I was thinking about, which this is where the owner representative and the project manager becomes really useful, was what can we purchase within the year from receiving the grant funds. So that looked like the solar panels, that looked like getting blowers, the emergency equipment, because also I want us to be prepared if a flood does happen within the near future. So that's why I included the emergency kits and the water purifier system. Just because I would, like I said, we would love to have equipment on hand just in case there is extreme flooding. I think that is like a realistic conversation that we have to have, especially within the increased rainfall. So that would ultimately be our plan. However, listening to your guys' conversation the other day, we are willing to adjust that and work once again with our resources and our partners to see realistically what we can purchase and what could be completed within this year.
We don't even have generators, so
Yeah.
like, right now, at this point, if power went out, we have emergency lighting, but we couldn't do anything if the, electrified if the power went out right now, so even generators just
Yes.
would help.
And yeah, that's one of the biggest things we also have to do is make sure we have the infrastructure for the electrification of the building. So that's one of our biggest focus, and I would say that's like a pre-phase one.
So as far as I know, the city still officially owns the building. How has the city officially responded to this proposal, if at all?
They're in favor of it. They also added in, thank goodness, because looking at the numbers, the fire panel and the electrical panel were added into our budget, and I knew that had been previously added into the facilities budget, and so that was looked at. So they are going to cover the upgrade of our fire panel, the upgrade of the electrical panel, and then we are guaranteed the 200,000 that was approved in the 2023 budget.
And then Rebecca Evans, the Director of Sustainability, has also been working with Siobhan and Rebecca Brenner, the Cornell University professor, to help us envision what a resiliency hub would look like, and they've applied for some grants as well that unfortunately we weren't able to receive. Then that was on Chuck Schumer's office. But yes, so they're on board, and they're a resource to us as well.
And not a lot of time, but the participation from Cornell, is that the university or just a professor in her class?
A little bit of both, because since we've been doing the work, I think we're on year 3 now. Einhorn, Center for Engagement, is now involved, and so the more we are involved, it seems that more of Cornell is jumping on board. But so yes, directly with Rebecca Brenner and Linda Shai, but then because of our continued work, it is becoming a bigger.
That job just because of the time constraint, I apologize, but thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so the public hearing presentations have now concluded, and IURA will now move on to its regular business. Normally, do we have a motion to continue the
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's even do this first. Because strictly speaking, we have a motion to open the public hearing. We got very excited.
Let's do it all over again.
Seconded by Donna, all those in favor of open public hearing unanimously. May I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing until 9 AM on March the 7th. Moved by Donna, second by Siobhan, all those in favor? Okay, we are now adjourned until then for the public hearing. And now we can move on to. Okay, and may I have a motion to 5-minute recess? Donna, Carl, all those in favor? Aye. Boom.
Yeah. Long meeting. The work doesn't get easier.
No.
They funded these applications.
No, it doesn't.
What has been happening this month?